Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar concerning challenges to the pig production in 2021 and how Stalosan can contribute to solutions. My name is Claus Andersen and I'm Sales Director in Vilefoss. Today's presentation will be given by my colleague Plamen Nikolov, who is one of our specialists into biosecurity and animal health. Plamen has a background as a veterinarian and has working with this field for more than 20 years. During the webinar, it's possible to ask questions in the chat, and after the webinar, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. This session will be recorded and sent to you afterwards together with Plamen's presentation. Then I would wish you a nice webinar. Enjoy, and Plamen, please, the word is yours.
Good morning. It's nice to be here with you. Today I will take some major issues for challenges in front of the pork production. And of course, one of the most important is African swine fever outbreak. It happened several years ago, and most of the people thought it will finish within a year or two, but it still continues. Then COVID-19 has a very strong influence on pig production, and we have another challenge coming in 2022, which is the ban of zinc oxide in Europe. Then antibiotic resistance become more and more important nowadays, and therefore I will try to give you some hints, some ideas about our dry disinfectant and how it can contribute to those problems and how it can improve the performance and profitability in pig production. Well, starting with African swine fever, maybe you know that pig meat is the major source of animal protein in human diets, and it have a stable share with about 35 to 40% of global meat production. As a market leader, of course, is China, where actually almost 50% of the pig production is happening, and also the consumption of pork meat is about 50%. China, unfortunately, was heavily hit by African swine fever, and by the end of 2019, actually the population of the pigs in China has decreased at 50%, and actually this trend was continuing in 2020, and it was expected to have additional 10 to 15% reduction of pig population in China. It was estimated that actually African swine fever has also a very important economical impact on China, and actually the losses was calculated of about $141 billion US. It was also disrupted the pig production because of the lack of pig meat. Also, it was lack of replacement gilts. So it was not just the direct impact of African swine fever on mortality of the piglets, but also disruption of the pig production in general. That raised the pork meat prices. And in China, they got about 78% increase only in China. It is very interesting, but also pig prices increased the price of other proteins, including the vegetable proteins. And actually, in 2021, it was expected that China will start to recover. And actually, I have been informed for a new facilities built in China with a huge capacity, but actually we will come later on with to this topic. So generally, it was expected that in 2021, the ongoing recovery of the China pig production will exceed 80%, and it is about to happen nowadays. You can see the map, the latest map of African swine fever outbreaks. Fortunately, you can see that again, China is quite heavily infected with African swine fever, and also the Asian area is quite heavily affected. The other region, which is dangerous, is south part of African continent, some part of Russia, Ukraine, and some parts of in Europe. Actually, also African swine fever has impact in also slaughterhouses because an export, because actually it has affected the wild boars infection, and in this case it was really very difficult to maintain a proper export. For example, nowadays in Germany there have been reported over 600 cases of African swine fever, but only wild boars. Domestic pigs remain ASF free, but still Germany is restricted from exporting the pig meat. That led to low pork meat prices in Europe because it was difficult to open the borders and to export pork meat mainly to China. Then suddenly it was reported that illegal vaccine was used in China, and actually it emerges a new variant of African swine fever virus. There are indications that actually vaccinations still continue because African swine fever is widespreading again in many regions in China. So that gave, from the other hand side, an opportunity for US pox export and also Brazil, because actually Americas was not affected by African swine fever at all. What is the solution for African swine fever outbreak? It is very simple, one word, called biosecurity. But actually, it is very important to go further and explore how exactly biosecurity can be implemented to prevent the infection of animals from African swine fever. On the first place, it is very important to investigate how a specific disease is transmitted. In this case, African swine fever is actually a contact disease, so it is very important to reduce or to remove the contacts of the animals with any other animal species, with human vehicles which enter the farm, also equipment which comes to the farm or it was shared with another farms, feed supply, and all other things which are coming outside the farm. So the solution is isolation. The farm should be very well isolated with a very nice fence around to restrict the entrance of human, animals, or wildlife to the farm, and only essential visitors should be allowed to go to the farm. It is very, very important also to have somebody from the farm to escort the essential visitors and to give them advices how they should behave according to the biosecurity system in the farm. It is also important to treat the animals which are coming, like replacement gills or animals which was on the exhibitions. On return, they should be treated as a newcomer animal, so they should be quarantined for a certain period of time and make an analysis, blood analysis for infectious diseases. Loading bays should be placed outside the farm or at least at the border of the farm, so they should stop the entering the trucks which are going to the slaughterhouse going into the farm. It is very important to avoid those trucks for coming to the farm, because normally slaughter trucks are going to several farms around, so it is very easy to spread the virus. Also, it is important to control the quality and the health of the semen material. It is necessary to check the health status of the farm where the semen material comes, And also it is necessary to require the all necessary health insurance documents which should be issued by the suppliers. It is something which is very often neglected, but food could be also a source of infection, especially African swine fever. So it is very important to restrict employees to bring food from their home to the farm, because it could be a really very interesting vector of transmitting of diseases. Domestic animals at backyards, this is something really very dangerous. Doesn't matter how strict the regulations are in the farm, when the employees are raising pigs at their homes, at the backyards, this is actually a very high potential for introducing the disease into the farm. And we have seen this in Romania. Actually, this is one of the main reasons why in Romania it is very difficult to restrict the transmission of African swine fever and to get rid of it. Wildlife could be also a vector of transmitting for disease. Boars, of course, they are very close to domestic pigs, and actually they can transmit and infect the domestic pigs. But also birds, rats, and flies can be a mechanical vector for transmitting of diseases. That's why it is very important to implement a very strict program for maintaining the grass around the buildings, to have a very good established fence around the buildings, so to restrict the birds and boars and other wildlife to come into the farm, especially to nest into the bushes or trees which are around the building. Waste management is also quite important, because infected carcasses and slurry can be a very dangerous source of diseases. That's why waste management is also something very important. Of course, cleaning and disinfection procedures are one of the most important in this case, together with the isolation. The farmers or management should be sure that actually disinfectant use in the farm are effective against African swine fever, and they are actually used very properly according to the producer guidelines. Information flow, this is something which is also very important. Information flow can give you a very specific, it could be a very specific tool to get in line with the new emerging diseases or with the spread of African swine fever disease in the region of the farm or in the country or in the continent. So information flow is something which should be really followed very strictly. Another threat actually coming to the swine production is COVID-19 infection. It does not affect pigs, of course, but actually it affected the pig industry. Actually, COVID pandemic showed us that we are living in a global village. So in a very short time, about 188 countries has been affected by the virus. As a consequence, actually, for example, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, China has suspended imports of 11 slaughterhouses in Brazil and 1 fish unit because of the concern of COVID-19 infection. Also, several slaughterhouses was closed in Germany due to the staph infection with COVID-19. This also places a lot of pressure on pig producers, because it is not possible to follow the normal management and especially to slaughter the pigs at the right time, and it gave a lot of pressure to the pig industry lately. Of course, it is the most important concern of COVID-19 is the product quality and food safety, because meat can be also a vector of transmitting of COVID-19 to the humans. Farm work power also was affected by the COVID-19 infection. Some farms, especially a large industrial farm, suffered a lot because of the lack of employees. And when farm is not capable to ensure the right personnel, then it is very difficult to follow the normal production cycle in the farm. Also, transport was affected by COVID-19, reducing the number of trucks and containers and ships transporting goods around the globe. So actually it also gives another restriction of export of pig meat. And on the other hand, it increases the prices of pork meat, of transport, and indirectly to the pork meat prices. Sales was reduced because of the hotels, restaurants, and coffee shops. They was closed due to the COVID infection. So actually it gives another negative impact on pig production. And also lately we see a very high prices of feed, which also was some kind of COVID-19 influence on the production and transportation of the feed raw materials. So what could be solution of COVID-19? Mainly it should be changing the focus from more and cheap food to added value products. It was obvious that actually vertical structures like modern industrial farms, which starting from the feed production and finishing with the slaughterhouse, could be very seriously affected because they are not very flexible, and it is difficult to disrupt or to adapt the production to a new model. Nowadays, the focus should be on product quality and food safety, especially, and flexibility of the industry is the most important. It should be adapted according to the market demand. You know that actually food service like restaurant and coffee shops are closed, so mainly nowadays the pork meat sales are going through the groceries. It has also immediate effect on consumption patterns, changing the purchasing habits of the customers from restaurants to supermarket. And also it was very interesting, but also consumers, they shift their demand from to local products or slow food, which actually ensures a better quality and much faster delivery of the products to them. There is also a new trend, families buy shares in farms, which actually gives some breath of fresh air to the small farm producers, and it is much easier to maintain a very proper supply to the customers nowadays. There is an uptrend to direct to customer deliveries, so it is something which is really new and could be a solution of COVID-19 impact of the pig production. Again, biosecurity is very important here, not only for animals, but also for human, because actually it can give a very good safety on and security on food safety. Automatization could be another issue which can help to overcome the COVID-19 influence on the market. Because of the lack of enough employees, automatization can improve the production cycle in the farm. There is another threat coming in 2022 in Europe. Actually, Europe has decided to reduce the use of zinc oxide, which is mainly used to control the area in wind pigs. It was actually administered at 100 grams per kilogram of body weight for 14 consecutive days, and it resulted in about 2,500 ppm of zinc in the feed. EFSA, the European Food Safety Agency, currently suggested that the level of 100 ppm meets the animals' needs of zinc. So later on, the European Commission has implemented that number in a law. So 150 ppm should be the legal limit for zinc supplementation for piglets in 2022. This actually is a new something new which requires much better management, and actually with regard a new strategy, Stalusan F can be very helpful to overcome this challenge. And maybe I should give you a hint. Everybody remember the ban of antibiotic growth promoters in 2006? At that time, it was really very stressful for pig producer, and nobody believed that actually this ban could be overcome and pig production can give a very good result. But we have seen that with the time, actually, it has no influence on pig production anymore. So the solution for zinc oxide is quite general. World-class piglets, that's maybe the most important word you should remember. It will require a very high-level management and a new well-formulated and well-balanced diet. And those are actually the words from my colleague, Jakub Dahl, who gave a very good presentation about world-class piglet a couple of days ago. And actually, he also stressed a lot about biosecurity, and I fully agree with him. Animal health in this case is a key factor, and with this regard, actually, Stalusan F can give a very good help to the farmers to overcome the ban of zinc oxide. Stalusan actually is a broad spectrum powder disinfectant, and his efficacy is lasting for a long time. It is effective against bacteria, fungi, and virus, and it is especially formulated for application in presence of animals. It is also active in presence of organic material. It is not toxic for the animals and people who apply it, and it is safe for the environment. So another threat also can be overcome with Stalusan is the antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It is an issue which was started to be very important a couple of years ago, and nowadays we are talking about this is one of the largest threats to our health, and it is known as a silent pandemic. Why is that? Because actually antibiotic-resistant bacteria is causing a death to the people, about 1.5 million deaths each year, and it could cause over 10 million deaths per year by 2050. One of the most important antibiotic-resistant bacteria is Staphylococcus methicillin-resistant bacteria. It has been found in 2016 that actually over 50% of the pigs in West Europe are carrying this bacteria, and it is a major concern as a source of human infections nowadays in Europe. I know that actually in some hospital people are testing farmers who are going with some health problems in the hospitals. And if MRSA is detected, actually they're not allowed to go for treatment in hospitals, because if once introduced to the hospital, it will be very difficult to control this bacteria anymore. With this regard, actually a new Oxford Institute is established. It is actually established in the same place where the penicillin was born. So it is something very important because this institute will actually focus on antimicrobial resistance, and it will try to find a way how to overcome this resistance. On the other hand, actually we have quite a lot of experience that Stalusan is capable to kill resistant strains of pathogens. We already have a test made against E. coli 0149 strain, which is a multi-resistant strain. And actually, you can see on the table below results of efficacy of Stalusan against MRSA, which is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So actually, this is a point where Stalusan can give a very good help to the farmers to reduce and even to get rid of the resistant bacteria. How Stalusan actually works? You see the pic on the slide with the red line. It represents the bacteria which starts to multiply together with the animals introduced in the farm, and reaching a certain levels, actually the multiplication of bacteria can lead to disease outbreak. But on the other hand, applying Stalusan, actually we are capable to reduce the pathogen pressure and to avoid the disease outbreak. It is very important also that actually when Stalusan controls the pathogen growth, actually it gives another benefit to the pigs, because normally in order to fight with pathogens, animals should develop their immune system, meaning they should use part of the proteins and energy to build up white blood cells in order to fight with the pathogens. But when the pressure is low, because of the action of Stalusan, then those proteins and energy, they're going for growing of the animals. This is one of the latest tests we have. It was made in Brazil, and actually it shows the efficacy of Stalusan against field isolates of pig pathogens. And this is mainly bacteria, E. coli, Pasteurella multocida, Salmonella, and Streptococcus suis. And also this trial was made with a load of organic material, 3, 5, and 7%. And sensitive actually means that Stalusan was capable to kill 99.99% of bacteria. Stalusan actually can control also diseases, means when disease is already in the farm, Stalusan can be used to solve the problems. We have some practical experience from China against African swine fever virus. A pig farm in Yan'an was actually infected with African swine fever virus with a capacity of 200 fattening pigs in 2 buildings. And actually, in about 15 days, a virus was capable to kill all available 145 piglets. Then boar barns and the roads around and the area around the buildings was treated with Stalusan F, and afterwards followed by disinfection with caustic soda, but just inside the buildings. 24 hours later, caustic soda was washed with a clean water, because it is very, very corrosive. And then this procedure was repeated 10 days later, followed by Stalusan application, including again the areas around the buildings. So actually about 60 days later, 6 local healthy piglets was purchased, and they have been monitored for any signs of disease. And a month later, actually, it happened that piglets are healthy, meaning that actually the farm is clean from African swine fever virus, and this farm has started to stock again the buildings. Farm was repopulated, and farmers were so happy with the Stalusan efficacy against pathogens that actually they've continued to use the product once per week. Benefits of Stalusan application. I would suggest that actually the best benefit of Stalusan application can be seen in farrowing place. That's why this is the most important place where the Stalusan application should start, because actually we have very young and fragile animals, and a reduction of the pathogen pressure is very important in this case. When actually we have plenty of practical information, and one of the most important features of Stalusan is that when it is applied during the parturition, then it could be achieved a half piglet per sow per liter. Stalosan also can be used for drying of newborn piglets to save the energy and to reduce the umbilical cord inflammation. And also Stalosan will help to mask the smells, so it will help to get a fostering of the piglets much easier. Also, it improves the health status if it is spread over the feces. So in this case, it can reduce the cases of diarrhea. Weekly application of Stalosan will ensure in average about 250 grams extra weight per piglet in average at the weaning. Also, Stalosan will reduce mortality in average about 10%. Of course, when the piglets are healthy, medication costs will be reduced. We have plenty of information that medication costs can be reduced with 50% if Stalosan is used. And this is very important because reducing the medication cost, actually we reduce mainly the antibiotics and we preserve of getting a new antibiotic resistant bacteria. The second, actually we have also a trial made in Brazil, which is quite interesting because in this case they got 600 grams of extra body weight at the end of the farrowing. Mortality was reduced with 36% and diarrhea with 43%. Here actually medication cost was not reduced that much, but still I think that it gives a very good picture about the practical efficacy and economical impact of Stalosan application during the farrowing. We also have a very interesting trial made in Denmark against hernia, umbilical hernia in newborn piglets. It happened in a farm where the farmer decided to produce only antibiotic-free piglets, but as a result, the pathogen pressure has built up, so it resulted in 4% of hernia in piglets. He has tried to treat the hernia with iodine and to use sawdust and potato flour in the layering area, but it didn't help, and that's why he decided to replace those products with Stalosan F. Over the application of Stalosan for 3 months, actually he managed to reduce the prevalence of hernia from 4% to 2.8%. Stalosan is evenly spread over the surface at 50 grams per square meter, and it is used once or twice per day according to the needs. Means when the layer area is wet, actually it is necessary to apply the product more frequently. The treatment actually is economically effective and provides an extra profit for the farmers in this case. The second important place where it is good to apply Stalosan is post-weaning period. You know that this is actually a very stressful period when the piglets actually change the feed, new groups are forming, and actually this is a really very substantial stress for the animals. In this case, actually we are capable to reduce the diarrhea accidents with about 50%, again to reduce mortality and mask again the smell of the animals, which will reduce the fighting to build up a hierarchy in the group. It also can help to prevent the cannibalism together with magnesium salt. Actually, I was reported that Stalosan gives quite good results in this case. Medication cost also will be reduced dramatically because of the reduction of diarrhea, mainly diarrhea cases. And of course, it is very important. Normally, piglets are using some weight after weaning, but maintaining the health status of the animals and reducing the diarrhea with Stalosan, actually we can ensure better starts of the piglet, which will result, of course, in better finish. So here in the graph, you can see a trial we have in a post-weaning piglets. Actually, average daily gain was really significantly improved to 27.8%. Score reduction or diarrheas was reduced with 50%, and mortality was also reduced. Cost of medication in this case was also improved with over 67%. It is also important to treat the pregnant animals, the pregnant sows, and it is also very beneficial to use Talusan during the artificial insemination. We have this experience. The picture actually comes from a large industrial farm in Bulgaria where 2,500 sows are raised. And actually, when it is used during the artificial insemination, it can improve the conception rate with 3%. Then the second insemination conception is improved with 5%, and the replacement of the gilts is reduced with 3%. Another issue is the group management of pregnant sows nowadays. It is a quite important challenge because it is difficult to apply all-in, all-out management for the pregnant sows, and many pathogens are persistent in the environment and causing mastitis and metritis to the animals. In this case, it is difficult to achieve good hygiene because of the presence of a lot of organic material, and because of that reason, actually liquid disinfectant does not work, and it doesn't make any sense to apply liquid disinfectants. So Stalusan actually in this case can have a very good influence on health status of the animals and the consequent production of the farm. We also have very interesting tests about Stalusan efficacy when it is applied as a boot disinfection. Actually, this test came from the University of Minnesota. We was not aware that the university is making a test with Stalusan, but it was together with Boehringer Ingelheim, who produced a PRRS vaccine, and actually they decided to find out which disinfection of the boot is more effective in order to prevent transmission of diseases into the farm. So they have made two tests, one with clean boots and one with very heavily soiled boots. And they have compared the efficacy of Synergize, which is a glutaraldehyde-based disinfectant, and Stalusan F. After they inoculated the boots, they have placed the boot in the disinfection pads, and they have PCR tested the boots swabs after 1, 3, and 5 minutes after disinfection. So here are the results. Actually, they have divided the test in two sections, one of them at 30 degrees Celsius. So you can say that in presence of organic material, Stalusan performed very well, while the glutaraldehyde-based disinfectant was not that good. In absence of organic material, both disinfectant has shown a very good result. The second section was made with minus 13 degrees Celsius. So in this case, actually, the liquid disinfectant was frozen, but Stalusan again performed very well against PRRS virus. So what are the advantages of Stalusan for the pig production? It is very important that applying broad-spectrum disinfectant, it is possible to reduce the losses in production. You can see from the picture there that actually 20% of the production is coming from the diseases. So reducing the diseases, you can improve the production results. 60% of human pathogens are coming from the animals. So again, with Stalusan, we can reduce this number. And of course, 5 new human diseases appear every year because of the cross-contamination between human and animal. It is important to remember that actually Stalusan is in a league of its own. This is the only powder disinfectant registered in many countries around the world and approved for application in presence of animals. Actually, it is important to mention that it is not just a disinfectant, but it has a triple action: disinfection, reducing ammonia and hydrogen sulfate, and drying out the environment. And actually, if we look at the different products available on the market, we can make an estimation that this is probably the cheapest product if we calculate the cost per square meter treated. Germs are costly, so Stalosan can contribute a lot to reduce the pathogen pressure and then to translate this pathogen pressure into the higher profit. Also, Stalosan can be very useful too in biosecurity system because it can be, there are not so many things which can be applied during the production to reduce the pathogen pressure of the animals. So that was the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention and feel free to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Plamen. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. We have one question saying, what do you expect concerning feed prices? In your opinion, is it driven on fundamental basis or more driven by investment funds?
Actually, it is not my area of experience, but as far as I remember, next Monday we will have another webinar with our feed specialist, Jakub Dahl, who will give especially advices about effective formulation for the piglets. So I think he can give a better overview of the price movement, because for me, it is quite difficult to follow this issue. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yes, we are. I think it's a good idea to attend the seminar with Jakub Dahl, but if I should try to comment on it, I think from my perspective, we will see price increases for feedstuff during the year in general. If you look into different kind of market reports, the main part is saying around between 8 to 12% increase in feed prices. And if we narrowed it a little bit right now in our own industry, we see quite huge price increases for especially amino acids, and this is mainly driven by some logistic challenges due to COVID, but also an increase in the overall demand. So a short answer should be yes, we will see higher prices on feed.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of fundamental basis and of course also influenced by some investors.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions to Plamen? Otherwise, you are always welcome to contact us. As said in the beginning, this presentation is recorded. We will pass it to you together with the presentation afterwards. And we hope really this webinar here has given you some useful knowledge and insights into the topic. For your information, we will arrange more webinars to come, and the next one is in 2 weeks. And the topic for this webinar will be into healthy poultry production. So in 2 weeks, you can attend one of our webinars again. Then I will close the meeting. Again, thanks for participating. Hope to see some of you again. Stay safe out there. Have a nice day and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.